York's classic rock, Q1043.
Good morning, and I want to introduce you to someone who is truly going to inspire you today. His story is so incredible. It is being made into a movie by the wonderful Ava Longoria. Richard Montanez is with me today, Richard P. Montanez, and he has the most incredible story, starting out as a janitor at Frito-Lay, climbing the corporate ladder and becoming the first Latino frontline worker to become an executive of PepsiCo. I mean, you can't write that kind of fiction and make people believe it. And yet this is your life, right?
Yes, yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, okay, we have to start with the controversy because you are described as the force behind the wildly successful Flamin Hot Cheetos and all the Flamin Hot products. And then, I was told that you created that and that there was this whole story of, well, you tell the story. What is the story behind you creating Flamin Hot Cheetos? Because the LA Times suddenly in the last year disputed that that ever happened. And yet this is your fame.
Yes, well, let me just first address the Times controversy. First of all, I didn't read the article, so I stayed away from it. And I think what the article did was create a lot of confusion for Flamin' Hot Cheeto fans all over the world. Certainly created a lot of confusion for Frito-Lay and PepsiCo after they, released their second statement. Giving me the credit for creating Hot Cheetos and several other brands. So I was happy with that. And as far as I was concerned, case closed. Somebody said the wrong thing, and somebody took it a step further. And it's kind of like saying, the theory is we never went to the moon. I look at it like that. He never created Hot Cheetos, which is ridiculous. No one was there in my kitchen other than me and my children. And you got to remember, when I created it, I was still a frontline worker. I still had a day job. I was doing this at my home. I was doing this on my own time. They didn't tell me go do this. That's the difference between, what anybody else is saying is I wasn't sent on an assignment. This is something that I wanted to do. And why did I want to do that? Because I found something within me that opened up who I was, and I just couldn't go backwards. I enjoyed what I was becoming at that moment. So, and that moment, you can see in my book. I started off at a migrant farm workers camp, and my first few jobs were I worked at a chicken ranch. I was a gardener, a car wash, all minimum wage jobs, and then a friend tells me they're hiring at Frito-Lay, and when he told me they're hiring at Frito-Lay, I thought to myself, this is the truth. It's like, oh my God, just think if I could get a job at Frito-Lay. That's my break. That's my Harvard. That's my one thing. They have health insurance, and my entire life I never had health insurance. My mom and dad would pray that none of us got hurt. That's just the way it was. It wasn't unique. I mean, you're talking the '60s, and it wasn't unique. Not everyone had health insurance. So I went and I applied. I got an application. And
How old were you? How old were you?
I was 18.
Okay, go on.
18. Yeah, and I asked the HR manager. Well, they were ER managers then. If I could take the application home because my writing and my spelling really sucked. I wasn't good at a formal education. Never had one. He said, yeah, sure. Took it home, and Judy, who is my wife and my inspiration, and kind of my backbone, she filled it out for me, and I took it back the next day, and I was nervous, and he looked at it and he just stared at it like, this guy's really checking out my application. Then he looked up at me and he said, did you fill this out? And I was scared, and I said, yes. And he said, well, you have nice handwriting. And I'm like, I've been stealing Judy's credit ever since. So he goes, you got the job. Can you start tonight? And that was the graveyard shift. Starting time was 10:30 till 7 in the morning. I said, absolutely. So I went home to tell my, or I went to the labor camp to tell my grandpa and my dad that I got the job. And, we could have celebrated like, again, Richard just graduated from Harvard, he's the janitor. It was a proud moment. I love the fact that I was a janitor. There's nothing wrong with being a janitor, especially when you believe in your heart that you're going to be the best janitor in the history of mopping floors. But my grandfather said something to me that is the reason I'm successful. He looked me straight in the eyes and he just said, when you mop that floor, you make sure that it shines, and when people see it, they know that a Montanez mopped it. You know that I literally took that on for the rest of my life. Everything that I did, I wanted to make sure that it would shine because of my last name. That was my way of changing the legacy of the Montanez family. So that's how I got hired and how I started off, mopping the floors. And my job was to mop the locker rooms, which were pretty big, the bathrooms, the break rooms, and all the offices for the managers. And what was pretty cool as a janitor, I realized that I had an influence. And people said, "How can you have an influence? You're just a janitor." No such thing as just a janitor, you know. But I saw when everybody would walk into the break rooms, it was like, "Hey, it smells pretty clean in there. Who cleaned it up?" And we're going to the lunchroom. "Hey, this lunchroom smells good. Who cleaned it?" And the manager would come in the morning like, "Hey, my office is spotless. Who cleaned it up?" And it all went back to that new janitor, Richard Montanez guy. So I saw that I was influencing people. I was making them smile without saying one word. Then I realized my work ethic is an influence. And I was the first time I learned what leadership was. It was serving others, in any way that you could. I wasn't a great speaker. I didn't know anything. I wasn't a speller. I couldn't, write anything. But I knew that if the floor and the restrooms smelled good, people would be happy, and I was okay with that. I loved that.
So, what is the story with the Cheetos, the Flamin Hot Cheetos? How old were you? What is the story? How did you create this? This
Well, a few
sensation that changed the future of Frito-Lay.
Absolutely, and certainly the future of my life. And several years had gone by. I had different. This was a union facility, so you had to bid for position.
Right.
And the one with the most seniority at the time would get it. So it took me a while to build my seniority, and so I moved around a lot within the production area. And then a new CEO comes into town in the early 90s. His name is Roger Enrico, very charismatic, and sent out a video. That was a communication in those days. There was no Google or anything like that. It was just a video or a fax. And in that video was so inspiring because he brought us all the plants in. And he said, Frito-Lay's in trouble. We're losing market share. Me and my executives cannot fix this company by ourselves. We need your help. And we're giving you, he said, I'm giving you permission to act like an owner. I need you to act like an owner. And I think at the time we had, I don't know, I don't remember, 200,000, 300,000 employees. So he's telling, all the employees, you have permission to act like an owner. And the people around me are thinking like, Richard, he's not talking to us. That's what corporate America says. But I'm the type of individual that I'm going to take every opportunity that I see it because of who I am. I don't know if I'm going to get another opportunity like this again. So I said, guys, he said, we could act like owners. Come on. And I did what I think a lot of people have to do is I broke ranks. I just got away and said, no, I'm gonna take Mr. Enrico's advice and act like an owner. So I told Judy, and she said, well, go do it. So I found a salesman at our plant, and I asked him if I could go with him on my day off so that I could learn the business. And he said, absolutely. I told him, I'll do all the work. I'm just your assistant. You don't have to pay me. So we went, and about the third store, and again, this is a long time ago. So the products that we were, filling the racks with was Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos, maybe sour cream, maybe barbecue, Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos. And I was looking around, I thought for a moment, hey, we don't have anything for people who love spices. We certainly don't have anything for the Hispanic community or any other, ethnicity, any other culture. So I just looking around and think, you know, I got a revelation. I got it. I'm gonna create a spicy chip. So when I got home, I told Judy, because she's again my inspiration, and always rolls with me. And I said, Judy, we're gonna use your salsa and put it on a chip. She said, great idea. With chip? I don't know. I hadn't got that far yet. So we went grocery shopping, and outside the local grocery store, there was a street vendor. He was selling corn on the cob. It's pretty popular now, elote, but back then it wasn't. And this young man just inspired me, because he nobody told him he was a street vendor. He acted like he had a 5-star restaurant. So I bought two, and he put everything on it. They put, mayonnaise, cheese, butter, lime, whatever you want for $1. I bought two, one for me and my oldest son, and I took a bite, and I took a second bite, and I looked at it, and I got a revelation. I said, oh my God, that looks like a Cheeto. So I said what I think every great entrepreneur leader has said one time in their life. I said, well, what if I put chili on a Cheeto? What would happen? So I ran and told Judy, and she said, absolutely, go get some Cheetos with no cheese on it. So I brought some home. We, after a few batches mixed up in my home kitchen, we felt we had a good combination. She took some to her work. She worked at the Target warehouse, and I took some to my work, and everybody said the same thing. You got to call the CEO. Well, keep in mind, this is during corporate America was command and control. What's command and control? I didn't hire you to think. I hired you to do what I tell you to do. Protocol. I didn't know what protocol was. So, I went and found the corporate directory, because again, I don't believe there was any email. I think the only way to call somebody was, the old corporate phone books. And sure enough, the very top, there he was, the CEO. Called him, and his executive assistant, Patty, another woman in my life. I've had my grandma, my mom, my wife, and Patty. Leadership of a woman for me has just made me who I am. And she said, "Who are you?" I don't recognize the name, because only a senior executive would call the CEO. Not even a vice president would call the CEO. Back in those days, command and control. You got to get the setting. So I told her what happened, and she put the call through. And I know she did something, because when Mr. Enrico got on the phone, he was just so excited. He said, I heard you got an idea for me. And I said, yeah, you said act like an owner, and I did this, and I think I have a product for people that love, spices. And he said, okay, I'll be there in 2 weeks. So he's coming to see me in 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing a presentation. I've never even done homework, so I went to the library, checked out a book on how to develop a marketing strategy, copied 3 paragraphs, didn't know what they meant, but they sounded good. I actually produced 100 bags, and I'm a little bit of an artist. I drew the graphics on it, and, we sealed it, and I bought my first tie for $3.50, and here they come. That day came, I walked into the office where the meeting was out, and to my amazement, 90% of the people in there were mad. It took me a while to understand, why are they mad when I'm trying to make things better for the company. And it was I finally realized they were mad because they couldn't understand why the CEO would bring them to hear the uneducated frontline worker when they have PhDs, they have all this stuff.
We only have a minute left. So how fast did you convince the CEO that?
Right, as soon as I got on stage, he gave the green light.
Wow.
He loved it. I think he loved the fact that a frontline worker was acting like an owner.
But there are 2 remarkable stories here. One, your rags to riches story, but the other remarkable story is the mark of a great leader, a CEO who said, who gave the okay to think like an owner and
Absolutely.
to create the opportunities. I want to let you know that Flamin Hot, the incredible true story of one man's rise from janitor to top executive, is a book that is now out. And who do you want to play you in the Ava Longoria produced movie?
Well, they hired a young man by the name of Jesse Garcia. So I'm really excited. And they hired Annie Gonzalez to play my wife. So we're pretty excited about that. And you're right about the CEO. my book and my story is about unity. It's about a white male at the highest level meeting with a young Latino at the entry level, and together, we came together to change the company. So it's a story of unity, and in there you will see the story of a Black man, African American, who became my mentor, Julius C. McGee. So you have a lot of color, and you have the women in my life. So this is definitely a book for unity, and that's the reason I wrote it. Is I want to unify this country. I'm an American. I love this country.
And
The
boy, do
American
we
dream
need
still lives.
that. I'm
Yes.
sorry, we have run out of time. Richard Montanez, what a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for your honesty too. And I will return in a moment with more Q104.3.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.